Pretty much everybody is here except Laura, who is running late, so you're stuck with me here for a little bit. Elizabeth, do you want to go over some of the housekeeping things again, just so that we got everything straight?
Sure. Good morning to everyone, and welcome back to the Co-Board. I think last time we had our meeting, it was at Austin Community College, and so, of course, we'd like to thank them again for their hospitality during our time of need. So, a little bit of housekeeping. Again, to use the microphones, make sure that you press the red light, and when you're done speaking, press the button again so that it goes off. When we are reviewing the meetings, or if anybody is watching online, if the light is not on, they cannot hear anything. And trust me, I've been reviewing the meetings, and I cannot hear anything if the mic is not on. So, however, if it is on, obviously we hear everything. So please be aware of that. There is a Wi-Fi service here at the Co-Board. It is the Education Go Get It. It is, there is no login for it. And we do have, bathrooms are down the hall, about halfway down. So, and so that is basically the minor. This meeting is being recorded. So please be aware that, and it is also being a live broadcast, so please be aware that anything you say, other folks are going to hear, and of course it's being recorded as it is a public meeting.
And can be used against you.
It may. That was only one time, Ray. I mean, come on. So, any questions regarding that?
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're welcome.
Copy of the minutes attached. If we could take just a few seconds to review that. Is there any comments, recommendations, or adjustments? And then one thing that Elizabeth brought to my attention is when we had the big committee meeting, they approved the recommendation that we had under number 6 on the agenda. Could you review that quickly, Elizabeth?
Sure. And just for your information, copies are being made, so everyone will have a copy of what the recommendation was presented to the, oh, actually, here it comes, that was presented to the larger advisory committee. Basically, under item number 6, it was the recommendations of the Building Construction Technology Subcommittee to the Architecture and Construction Program of Study Advisory Committee. So the first recommendation, yeah, it's only 2 pages. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The first section was that the building property maintenance discipline area should have its own subcommittee set up by the advisory committee to determine that particular program of study. The second item was that the surveying technology discipline area should have its own subcommittee set up by the advisory committee for that particular program of study. And the reason that you all decided on that was due to the lack of expertise in those particular fields of this subcommittee, and you felt that a subcommittee should be set up just for those areas so that they would have those experts. The proposed construction management program of study, which you all should have a copy of now, the spreadsheet, and there is, it is also up on the screens. And the fourth item was that the subcommittee intended to meet again to enhance and fine-tune the WECM courses listed on the proposed construction management program of study. And that is the purpose of today's meeting.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Any questions regarding that? Is there any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Second?
I'll go ahead and second it.
It's been moved and second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public testimony.
I don't count.
course you count. Hearing or seeing no one, there will be no public testimony at this time. And that leads us into the discussion and revision of the programs of study, and it's basically what we have in front of us is the summary of what we had in the meeting. And I'm going to turn this over to Elizabeth for discussion.
Thank you, Ray. Okay. So basically what you have in your handouts is the description, the course description and learning outcomes directly from the WECM for the 10 courses that are part of the proposed construction management program of study. So you all will have the opportunity, as decided in your previous meeting, you all wanted an opportunity to discuss these different courses, to fine-tune them, tweak them, perhaps add additional vocabulary if necessary so that the course meets the needs. Additionally, you also have a listing of all the courses in the CNBT line, in case, because I know that there was also discussion about possibly archiving a few of these. And then you also have a worksheet, so if you all wanted to take additional notes or be able to offer this information to the committee in regards to if you all feel certain courses needed a prerequisite, although several of these should not, if there are prerequisites, they should be listed. We do not want to have a student, you know, or have a program of study that has hidden requirements that are not listed already. So with that in mind, and I know this was one of Laura's forerunning items. So, and with her absence here, I guess we can go ahead and start looking at the different courses. Do you all, I know that in the minutes, there was a lot of discussion about some of the courses. If you look on page 2 of the minutes, item number 4.
Elizabeth,
Yes, sir.
how delayed is Laura?
I don't know. I mean, she had sent me an email stating that she was running late, and her assistant had also called, and when I asked if she knew, like, how late, she did not know. So
Okay, thanks.
I know when she sent her message, she sent it from her phone, her email, but I don't know.
Okay, thanks.
All right. I know if you look over at, if you read on item 4, there was discussion about, question about change in blueprint name affecting secondary courses and presenting the concept to students. If name is changed from blueprint, it should be consistent across the board, including secondary. So when you all were discussing the CMBT 1300 blueprint reading course to be added to the POS, it was recommended that the title and description be tweaked. So if you all would take a few minutes to kind of read the description, you all do have that with you. And the outcomes, and perhaps then you all could have your discussion in regards to how this course should be updated.
Dwayne, do you have the course description electronically? Maybe we could put it on the screen. I mean, I can get the keyboard.
I guess in the interim, for the purpose of the webcast, I will go ahead and read the course description. So when we talk about CMBT 1300, its titled is Residential and Light Commercial Blueprint Reading. The course description is Introductory Blueprint Reading for Residential and Light Commercial Construction. The end of course outcomes, scale prints with architectural and engineering scales, identify construction blueprint symbols and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction contract documents, and correlate elevations, sections, details, plan views, schedules, and general notes. So, based upon this, I know at one point you had some concerns, Brad?
Those were alleviated when I saw that it did include light commercial as part of the title. We kind of panicked earlier and decided not to use this for our commercial program, but I think this will work out just fine. I was going to say we might just replace blueprint with construction drawings. It's just an idea.
Blueprint is a little bit out of date, isn't it?
Why are we limiting it to those two sectors of the construction industry?
I think this is toward the construction management degree?
Correct.
Okay, so that group is, they're not, I know they have, our school has drafting or has blueprint reading for other disciplines, and not, and so in the construction management, this is literally what we use. We get them into construction documents and things, so we're not getting them into shop drawings, for welding or other items. We do mention it, but we do not focus on that part.
That wasn't my question. The question was, this is restricted to light commercial and residential. The construction industry is much wider than that. Why are we restricting it? Why aren't we looking at industrial drawings? Why aren't we looking at drawings for highways or bridges? That was my question.
I'm kind of looking over the list of courses to see if the answer, usually the answer would be that there was another course for those. And maybe you've just noticed, maybe I've just noticed that there isn't. Is that, so if that's a recommendation from the committee, we can just.
There's one farther down, is commercial industrial blueprint rating on the C and BT courses.
Okay, that's 2X10. So I guess that's what I was looking for. That's probably the answer to that question, is to distinguish it from the commercial industrial.
Should it be
Course.
any courses describing blueprint reading?
We tend to have I guess, kind of an issue with that with the colleges, in that some colleges will just want to offer they might offer some students an introductory class, and then the other one is a more advanced class. And so if you just had one course that was supposed to satisfy both, then the college would just say, we can't use this one because it's too introductory, or we can't use this one because it's too advanced. So, I mean, I guess I'm reflecting what we commonly hear from colleges.
I think what you're saying is what we said last time. We were saying we had two classes distinguished. That's why we was keeping it like that. We had the residential and then we had the industrial one separate. That was the purpose of not coming just one class and putting everything under one, because we wanted to keep them separate, because we was using one as the beginning class kind and one was the advanced class, just what you said, I thought. And so I think because we already had the two classes, the residential and then we had the industrial. So it was the two courses instead of trying to bring it into one course, which it wouldn't meet all the requirements if you brought them into just one class.
I don't understand, I mean, I can understand why you would want to keep them separate, but why not, instead of having blueprint reading, like we talked about, make it all construction document reading? Have one for residential, like commercial, and one for commercial industrial. But it's construction document reading instead of blueprint reading for each of those courses.
Right, and I guess that was the recommendation that was just made, to change it from blueprint to construction drawings. And is that what you mean by construction documents?
Yes.
Is documents a better word versus drawings? Because part of the course description talks about contracts.
Yes.
Interpret a set of construction contract documents. Now, with that being said, does it then kind of take out the first observation of what you're really doing, which is learning how to read plans?
The way we teach it, we don't talk about contract documents at all. We only talk about drawings. I don't know about, what about the rest of you?
We cover contracts in another class. We cover contracts in another class.
Yeah, so do we. Does anybody talk about contracts in blueprint, well, in what used to be called blueprint reading?
I think in general, though, it's an introductory course where it's just, we introduce the concept of construction documents. But in essence, though, I think the importance is that I think we're phasing blueprint reading because hardly anyone's using, again, the old traditional way of doing the blueprint readings, blueprint drawings, even though in the field, though, everybody says, where are the blueprints, you know? And those are some things that I guess we need to understand that regardless, they're still called the blueprints, even though we're trying to change the wording of what it is, so.
Could we just go with the word prints instead of blueprints?
Well, the morality, the legal term is construction documents. You get it into the contracts or into things, the legal term is construction documents. They do not say blueprints. But as I said, in the class we teach, we mention that they exist, and actually partially we give them the outline from CSI, this CSI format, but we don't really, we kind of basically tell them where they look for the subject, but we don't get into detail of those subjects. I like the word construction documents because it actually includes everything, but it focuses mostly on prints. And that's what I think is, I think changing that to that would not be, to me, just changing the title to construction document.
And again, it's not either or. You could, for example, say construction documents and drawings, if that would, I'm just trying, if that would
No,
help.
I'd just say
Construction
construction
documents
documents only, because it implies that the drawings aren't part of the construction documents, and they are.
Construction documents would be your umbrella of all the other items in there, which your spec
Okay.
book and everything else
And
into it.
I guess I'm, again, looking at from the college point of view, if they're doing a search, where do I find a course in blueprint reading? That's the first thing they're going to ask, even though, you know, it's antiquated. So they're going to look for blueprint. They're not going to find it because we changed it to documents. Now they're going to look for, well, how about drawings? And they're not going to find it we can include it in the outcomes. I'm fine. I'm kind of bringing up that. But if you're okay with construction documents, then that's.
Another option you can consider is, and I'm just throwing this out there just for text, under the course description, you can say introductory construction document reading for residential and light commercial construction, including the history of blueprints or something. Just because of the point that Dwayne brings up about if you're doing a search, and like Ray said, blueprint is still used the way Xerox is still used, or can I get a Kleenex as opposed to a tissue, you know? I mean, it's just one of those terms, so I'm just throwing it out there for discussion and consideration, to take it also from the point of view of the student who's doing a search, so.
In my world, for what it's worth, we refer to them as plans. You know, we don't say construction documents, we don't say blueprints, and haven't for quite a while. If somebody, you're looking for the plans, you know, not,
Okay, and I think we've got 2 or 3 good suggestions. Perhaps as Elizabeth suggested, keeping or retaining Blueprint from a historical point of view. But what if you came at it from a slightly different point of view? And I just had something, and I think I've lost it, but interpreting residential and light commercial plans or something like that. And I mean, I think the point is you can come at this from several different points of view. What's the best point of view? And I kind of agree. You know, Dwayne says more or less that, well, we've always called them blueprints, but then, not speaking for everybody in the room, but speaking for myself in the room, maybe it's because we learned that they were blueprints, and what are the 20 and 30-somethings who are going to be in these courses, what are they learning them as, or what should they be learning them as, you know, not to be sounding like a broken record. Anyway, so I think we can come at it from several different points of view, and I do think perhaps retaining blueprint history, if that's appropriate.
You know, looking at just a general search right now, and it seems like there's a lot of textbooks already that are making that change. That they're construction drawings for details and so forth. So, from all the searches that I did, there's only one book. This is Blueprint Reading. So, construction drawings is already something that's already being used right now in the industry.
I think drawings would be much more appropriate than documents.
I would agree, because that's real specific, and documents is awfully broad.
I would agree with that too. If I was a student searching that out and I saw documents, I would think much more legal than the actual plans. I think it just takes their focus in a different direction. You may talk about those things, but I think we're going to have to involve some kind of drawing or architectural plans or some kind of that says what we're actually working on. I know they're all documents, but the student needs to know what they're looking for.
It would probably be a better substitute than Blueprint and be more in the same line, especially if they're searching something. So are we in agreement that Blueprint Reading will be, or construction drawings will be substituted for Blueprint Reading? Okay, we'll go with that.
So the final title will be Residential and Light Commercial Construction Drawings.
Have we decided we want to restrict it to residential and
We still
light
have that.
industrial and light commercial?
There's another course in that regard.
Right, for this particular course, the residential and light commercial, and then there's another course for commercial and industrial. And we can make the same changes to that course title.
I guess Jonathan's wondering if the courses need to be separate at all.
Well, are we going to put two construction drawing interpretation courses on the curriculum? I doubt it. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, I
I
don't
think it may
know.
not be the same curriculum. It might be some students take the residential and light construction, and other students will take the commercial and industrial. And from what I understood from discussions we've had before, those are two totally separate courses.
It'd be interesting to know, does anybody here have two tracks? An industrial track and a commercial track?
Well, the residential.
Well,
residential and
commercial
commercial.
usually go together.
We have residential and commercial. We do not.
One track,
Yeah. Residential, commercial, light commercial
that's one track.
is one track.
Yeah.
We do not, our degree program doesn't touch
No, we do
industrial.
have the two tracks. We have a residential track and we have a commercial track, but we don't have industrial or heavy commercial.
No, neither do we.
Some four-year colleges have two tracks. U of H is famous that they have a commercial track and an industrial track. Some four-year schools are all commercial, and UT is primarily industrial. So there's very little consensus in our.
Do we know how many of our colleges are using the commercial and industrial blueprint reading course?
We
mean,
do,
is that-
I can look that up.
I mean, I'm
But
just
keep in
curious.
mind also, just as an FYI, that course is not listed on the recommended program of study that you all agreed on. So just as an FYI, okay, so.
Just as a sort of a ground rule, if we list it as recommended, that means you'd have to teach it. And if you wanted to teach industrial, that would be another course you'd have to get in there somehow.
Yes, however, as we mentioned earlier, the framework that you all were passed out, this is what you all agreed on last meeting, and then this was also already provided to the advisory committee as a recommendation.
So any college can go in there and add the commercial industrial just as another course, part of what we made the
sorry?
recommendation
Yeah,
for.
if they wanted to add it as an additional, but this is the program of study, right. So, but at your school, if you wanted to add that additional, that's up to you, but this is the actual program of study. Gary?
Right. Well, and obviously, as more or less discussed, Houston and the Gulf Coast area has the big industrial refineries and that kind of stuff, but we don't see those in many other areas of the state. And so that's what we have to be careful about for the program of study. And I think we've talked about that, the program of study, and I don't remember the final number of hours in the program of study, but I know it's not the entire 45. What's the number of hours, Elizabeth? Do you have it?
It's 29.
29. And so where appropriate to meet the needs of the community, I think that's where you pick those courses up. It's, as I kind of scan in my head, I'm sure there's some of this that goes on, but I can think of many different colleges, and as I drive through those communities, I don't see the big industrial refinery kind of things. So that's probably a skill set more appropriate for the Gulf Coast area and, perhaps Midland out in there, where the oil and gas industry is heavily concentrated. And so it seems to me we should stay at more of the residential light construction, because that seems to be where the conversation has centered and what this program is really supposed to do in 2 years. And as Elizabeth said, there's still room to specialize beyond the program of study.
So to answer the question, looks like they're on your monitors, the bottom here, it looks like there are 4 colleges that teach the commercial industrial blueprint reading. Brazosport, Paris, San Jacinto, and TSCC Harlingen. So I guess like Jonathan's point is probably pretty well taken. It's kind of a minority of colleges that offer that course in the first place.
All right, sir, we good with the title. There was some question about whether we need to add interpretation behind there before it was reading, or is it just understood construction drawings that you'll be looking at them? So we're good with residential light commercial construction drawings? All right, we'll go with that. Is there any, we'll make those changes in the course description then?
Okay, so just to confirm the title, I'm sorry, just confirm it again. So residential and light commercial construction drawing, not construction drawing reading, right? Okay. Yeah, is it
I would-
drawings or
I would probably
drawing?
say introductory to construction drawings
So plural, construction drawings.
for residential, light commercial construction.
So the way it is right now, just leaving blueprint reading and putting construction drawings, introductory construction drawings.
No,
that would-
but to make it kind of make better sense, I would probably say introductory to construction drawings for residential and light commercial. Yes. Well,
Oh,
that's
for
all
the
we
title.
decided on
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so the title would be residential and light commercial construction drawings. The course description, introductory to construction drawings for residential and light commercial construction.
Introduction, perhaps, would be.
Making sure about that, sorry. Introduction to construction drawings for residential and light commercial construction. And the end of course outcomes, scale prints with architectural and engineering scales, identify construction drawing, singular, symbols and abbreviations, interpret a set of
A
construction,
blueprint has to go, huh? You said drawings?
yeah, but drawing singular as opposed
So
to.
it should be plural.
Identify construction drawings, symbols, like that? That's what I had it singular.
Because you got the symbols and abbreviations.
Exactly, that's, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So, okay, end of course outcomes, scale prints with architectural and engineering scales, identify construction drawings, symbols, and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction contract documents, and correlate elevations,
We
sections,
should, instead
details.
of contract documents, we should say drawings,
Construction drawings.
Interpret a set of construction
drawings.
drawings instead of contract documents? Okay.
Because all the rest of the stuff refers to, all those details that follow, all have to do with drawings.
Okay, so, again, scale prints with architectural and engineering scales, identify construction drawings, symbols, and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction drawings, and correlate elevations, sections, details, plan views, schedules, and general notes.
What does scale prints with architectural and engineering scales mean? And I mean, I know the drawings are drawn to scale, and I know that you use a scale that, you know, you convert. So I think we're cleaning a fish here with so many scales. I mean, are you really scaling the prints with scales, or are you learning how to use the scales or something?
Learning how to use the scales, learning how to interpret them. That's a big point we've run across, is they do not know how to use them, and they need to. Probably I'd recommend is just to change that to outcomes, what you got is, it's saying scale prints, which you literally tell them you never scale prints. That's going to get you in trouble if you're out in the construction field. I'd say this is,
It's usually in general notes, too.
yeah. I think it says, we probably could take out, start out with identifying construction documents, or drawings, symbols, and put the, and it says in general notes, and this is, and architectural and engineering scales at the end of the description. I'd like to put that at the end, because that's literally what, that's just another item that you're learning to do. It's not really the core. I think it says, end of course outcomes, identifying construction drawing symbols, abbreviations, interpret sets of construction drawings, and correlate elevations, sections, details, plan views, general notes, and use of architectural and engineering scales.
I like that.
So my question is, I mean, from his question when he's asked, can we just change scale to drawing or draw prints? I mean, to me, I think it was just a simple question. We got so many scales. There's scale prints with architecture and engineering scales. Would it be draw prints with the architecture and engineering scales? That's all I was getting out of that. Or
They don't do any drawings. We don't have them draw
you got
plans.
CAD, right? Isn't that drawing?
It's
about, no.
This is just introduction, so it's,
How to interpret and how to read the plans, and how to use some of the symbols.
Okay, so now we have for the end of course outcomes, identify construction drawing symbols and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction drawings, and correlate elevations, sections, details, plan views, schedules, general notes, and use of architectural and engineering scales.
And use of architectural and engineering skills? Okay. Like that.
Would everybody be willing in the title of the course to drop what sectors it refers to? Because in the outcomes, we don't talk about what kind of construction you're looking at. We're just talking about drawings. Why do we have to have it in the course title? The course is about how to interpret construction drawings. And why do we have to say whether they're residential or light industrial or heavy? I mean, drawing's a drawing, and let each school teach what they want to.
So, yeah, if we agree to that, we can just drop that residential and light commercial, and so the title would be construction drawings. Is everybody agreeable to that? Or anybody
Everybody's
object?
thinking.
I can agree to that in some extents, because at the same time, you're introducing a structural set of sheets, a civil drawings, and everything in general. Because right now, if we take a look at it, the residential and light commercial, we may be referring only to the A drawings, the architectural drawings. But in general, it's everything on that set of plans. So,
I mean, since it's not in the outcomes, I put it in the title.
It is in the course description.
Right, well,
But, yeah,
that's where I
it's in
was suggesting taking it out.
Just my opinion. Okay, since we're trying to standardize this across the state so that students can transfer from school to school, it might be an issue if we had a student that came to Northlake and they had taken this class somewhere else and where they had focused on industrial, and then they come into my commercial management program and they wouldn't know how to read commercial drawings.
On the other hand, I mean, if they can understand industrial drawings, they're going to pick the commercial ones up pretty quickly.
So, Jonathan, what would be your recommendation then to read though? Like, how would it read?
Just drop what they referred to.
Are you talking about?
Say, what was it? Construction, drawing, interpretation. Period.
In the
Without
course
saying what it
description?
was for.
In the course description?
Yeah.
Okay, talking about the course description.
So you're recommending the course description just be introduction to construction drawings?
Perfect.
And then in the title, take out residential and light commercial construction, that part, and just call it construction drawings.
Construction drawing. Yep.
Say that again, please.
Sure. So the recommendation is, the title would be construction drawings, and the course description would be introduction to construction drawings.
Period.
Yes.
Could you read back the end of course outcomes then?
Sure. What's been recommended for the end-of-course outcomes? Identify construction drawing symbols and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction drawings, and correlate elevations, sections, details, plan views, schedules, general notes, and use of architectural and engineering scales.
Do we have consensus on all that? One down? Turn your mic on.
I was asking him if he could repeat his concern again.
My only concern is if it's broad like that, and we have a student that comes into our program from another college as a transfer, we don't know if we don't know what they've learned. We don't know what they've gotten out of this class because it's so wide open. And we have a concern if we're going to allow, take this in as a substitution, or just as is, we don't know whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial, or civil, or anything. We don't know what they're coming into the school and we don't know what they've been taught.
I guess, Brad, your concern is that perhaps a college may just go in there and concentrate heavily on commercial and just forget the residential component. Is that?
Well, and I think when Dwayne had brought it up, there was 4 schools that, were going to the 2 times 10 commercial industrial blueprint reading, and the others were more on the residential and light commercial. So I think you have a valid argument that they might be coming out of a curriculum that's commercial and industrial as opposed to what is the general coursework, which is residential and light commercial.
And I guess another, point to bring up, whether it's construction and commercial, industrial, or residential, are the symbols and abbreviations or the elevations, plan views, all of these things, scales, are they different if it's an industrial versus if it's a residential? Do they use different
Yes, it is.
symbols? And would a student who took residential be able to find or somehow look up like symbols for industrial? I mean, do you teach them just the symbols, or do you teach them where
It's-
to look up symbols that they don't know?
It's being able to understand what you're looking at. That's very important. If you don't understand the industrial, I don't care if you're looking at plans, you're not going to understand what they're doing. It's learning, to us, industrial is, now, the certain part where I look at as industrial would be, as you put, is looking at factories, major factories. Now, I'm not talking about buildings part way. I'm talking about like the petroleum industry. That is industrial. The building part, that's the same. But when you get into that interpretation, you got to know what is what are you teaching it? What is being taught in those classes? Because that part is not the same as going into a light commercial building or a residential. They don't mix.
But I guess the point is that information taught maybe in a later course or in a different course?
It would, to
In other
me, it
words-
would be taught in a different thing, because you get into heavy commercial. We talk in our classes, we talk about steel beams, steel structures, which you have in light commercial, concrete. But industrial gets into a whole new different ballpark. and we don't even go there.
And, you know, I
We'll
think,
mention surveying, we'll mention roadways, because we get those in other subjects, but we don't get into necessarily blueprint reading on that.
and I think that's maybe a good framing point, James, is, you know, this is an entry-level associate degree in construction management, you know, and so that was almost my thought, is commercial really and truly in that scope? And I mean, I really and truly don't know exactly what you're talking about, but it seems to me that if you're talking about steel framing, steel beams, multi-story buildings, stuff like that, and/or refineries, that seems like that's an advanced skill set that's not introductory. I mean, it seems like you'd have to know how to build a one-story building before you know how to build a five-story building. No? Right? Well, some
Agree
yeses,
with that.
some nos.
That's, yeah. And I said, and mostly it says, what we'd ever talk about is a two-story building. Residential two-story, commercial two-story at the most. But like our degree program is focused on residential, mainly residential. And that's where our accreditation comes from. That's where our construction management group, I think just like North Lake, they've got us focused in a certain area because that's where they want us to, that's where they're looking at, and bringing in people into residential and things.
And currently, we use the same, what's caused a bit of a stir at North Lake is that up until and through this summer, we have been using the number 1371. And it's a local needs number, and the college has asked us to retire those. So as of fall, we want to retire that, and that number won't be used for the blueprint reading class, or for the construction drawing class. But we have used 1371 interchangeably between our residential and commercial options. But when they take the class as part of the residential, we focus on residential, and when you take the same class number, but they're doing it in commercial, they concentrate on the commercial end. So it muddies the waters.
So the way the course currently is listed as residential and light commercial offers your institution an opportunity to offer it
Either
on
way.
the residential construction management or on the commercial side.
So where does this lead us?
Yes.
We had kind of had agreement to take residential like commercial out and had it generic. Brad has certainly brought up a valid consideration. Do we need to still keep those 4 schools that we're concentrating on commercial and industrial, the opportunity to identify their curriculum as such? We add residential and light commercial in parentheses behind the drawings on our course descriptions and outcomes, and then leave both courses on, this other sheet?
I think we do, because then, once if you take that off, then are we gonna have to go look at the commercial and industrial then? I mean, that's just my point of view. I mean, right now, we're distinguishing, like you said, and like what James said, we got the distinction. So once we go generic, go with such a vague term, so then are we gonna have to go down and do the same thing to commercial and industrial? Because it will be no need for it. So now we're eliminating classes.
And it sounded from James' description that this other course probably has a little bit more detail that is not necessarily addressed in the 1300.
No, I think, I could say we could do what we're doing here. I like the idea of parentheses, putting in residential like commercial. So it is construction documents, or drawings, construction drawings, but in the course description, we can say construction drawings, then parentheses, residential light commercial. So they know what we're focusing on in this course. Then down in commercial industrial, you could do the same thing, and you could say, we're focused on heavy commercial and industrial. Because we're going to do light commercial, there'll be heavy commercial. Heavy commercial being multi-story buildings, warehouses, hangars, large complex buildings, those type of things.
So would that recommendation be in the course description to put back in, say, introduction to construction drawings for residential and light commercial construction?
This thing, I like the introduction to construction drawings with the focus on residential and blueprint reading, or residential and light commercial, excuse me. I'm getting out of the habit of saying that so many times, but yeah.
So would they focus on residential and light commercial?
Light commercial.
Construction.
That separates the two courses. And it gives the two colleges, the two different groups that are using it to say, hey, this is our group, and no one looks through it and they go, oh, this is not what I want. This is what I want. Because you could literally get someone looking for something and say, oh, they offer this, and you go to the college and say, this is not what I want. I've had students walk in, this is not what I expected this to be in some cases. And they, okay, this is what you're doing. They weren't even in construction management, they were in art.
Okay.
And I go, no, this is not what you're wanting.
So you would leave you still recommend the title then be just construction drawings?
I don't think you have a
Parentheses,
problem.
residential.
In
I
the
don't have a
title?
problem with that.
I guess my problem is, we still got in residential and light construction, we just put it in parentheses. I mean, I guess, am I missing a point?
Okay, so this is what I understood everybody to say, so let me know if this is wrong. So for title, it would be construction drawings. For course description, it would be introduction to construction drawings with a focus on residential and light commercial construction. For the end of course outcomes, identify construction drawing symbols and abbreviations, interpret a set of construction drawings, and correlate elevations, section details, plan views, schedules, general notes, and use of architectural and engineering scales.
Sounds good?
So is residential and light commercial out? We just calling it construction drawings
In the title.
in the title? And then where do we go when those schools want it to be focused on commercial and industrial?
Well, there's another,
Course further down, 2310?
And that just, so what is that called?
that's,
Commercial industrial blueprint reading, but I guess it could be changed to heavy commercial industrial.
To me, it seemed like the title, we just cutting the title out, but we saying the same thing in introduction. We really, so what's the harm of leaving the residential and light commercial? Because you're going down to you're going to the course description, and that's what you're saying it is. So why not just identify it right in the title like it should be? I understand that some of you saying that. I mean, we're doing the same thing, and then you're going down and you're saying in commercial, you're taking them out the title, but you're putting them back in the introductory. Why not? I mean, that's what you're saying, that's the course description. So why not let that title, you can look at it right there, stand, you can see it. I mean, so now you're gonna,
I think for clarity with this other class, which is more of an advanced construction drawings, we need to leave residential and light commercial
In the
in the title.
I agree with that too, especially if you're a student looking at a list, you're not necessarily going to go look through the course descriptions. You're going to look at titles and say, oh, that looks good.
thank you for wording that. My wording didn't come out as good as yours.
So we're back to residential and light commercial construction drawings?
Yeah.
And then course description, introduction to residential and light commercial construction drawings?
Introduction to construction drawings with a focus on residential and light commercial construction.
We may catch something else off to the side on it. But I do still talk about highways, I still talk about big buildings, but we don't focus on it.
I mean, you can add, you just can't take away.
Right. Yeah.
So introduction to construction drawings with a focus on residential and light commercial construction. Does that affect our end-of-course outcomes? It doesn't.
No, it does not.
Is there agreement on first one here?
Yes.
Now that we've laboriously gone through that, I'm going to turn it over to Laura.
Sorry, we had, there were interesting traffic issues coming up from Corpus this morning.
Do we need to make a motion on that, or?
So I agree. Yes, I think a motion needs to be made to accept the new version that's been proposed and agreed upon.
I'll go ahead and make the motion for the recommendations of what was just read a little while ago.
Second, yeah.
But
Agree.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept the language as read by Elizabeth and Ray. Any other further discussion? I don't see a need to regurgitate it again, but all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Now you've got it, Laura.
Now you're turning over.
Okay. All right.
Elizabeth, is this the document we're working off of in order?
Right, because what's been provided is each course from the WECM with the course title, course description, and the outcomes listed, so.
This doesn't follow this.
No,
No,
no.
No, the-
Because this is what's, the little packet is only the 10 courses that you all agreed upon.
And they're in numerical order rather than by title. Or by, they're not in the same sequence as they're listed here.
They're in numerical order.
Okay, so the next course we're looking at is Mechanical, Plumbing, and Electrical Systems in Construction 1, CNBT 1302 or 1402. Course description, a presentation of the basic mechanical, plumbing, and electrical components in construction and the relationship to residential and light commercial buildings. Does anybody have any, is everybody okay with the description as it's written? Okay. End of course outcomes. Identify equipment and components of electrical, plumbing, heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems, and describe the relationships between the mechanical, plumbing, and electrical systems, and discuss implications of sustainable building systems on design. Does any-
sorry, I just need to go back to the title. Can it be mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, so we can refer them to as the MEPs?
Good point.
I mean, the words are still there, but it's just in the industry, MEPs.
What is the division listing again, order? I think we ought to list it in order of division in CSI.
Is that what it's?
At CSI, I think plumbing comes first.
I know we're used to saying MEP, but, I mean,
That's on architectural drawings, typically, they'll have a page titled MEP.
well, usually they're listed separately, but in the division and listing the drawings, they're listed in, there's a standard for listing them in a certain order. And I,
That is the order.
the MPE.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
That is the order. I just didn't know what was the history behind putting it like that, but
I
if
think that's
if
why,
there's
is they
a,
were following CSI
Okay.
divisions.
It's, yeah, because electrical always falls at the end in CSI. It's the last group between them all.
I think that's why
They'll
it's
they'll
MPE.
combine.
For the
mechanical.
record, what is CSI in this case?
Construction Specifications Institute.
That's why I emphasize that it's in this context. I was
That's
asking.
from us.
It's the industry standard listing for the different
Right.
trades and divisions of construction.
Okay. So recommendation is to leave it as is.
yeah, if that is the case, I'll go ahead and accept that to go with the title the way it is. I was just pointing that out.
All right, does anybody have any discussion on the course description or learning outcomes or title?
Different sequence. Course outcomes than we do in the title. Difference.
Well, you may want to just move the, flip them around because the heating, air conditioning, and ventilation is your mechanical. And then you've got plumbing, and then you put electrical. It's basically kind of flip them around a little. And it would stay in order with everything else we have.
So going with heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems, electrical, and I think the reason why it's listed at the end is because there's an "and" in there, HV and C. But heating, air conditioning, and ventilation systems, electrical and plumbing.
Plumbing, electrical.
Yeah, plumbing, electrical, plumbing and electrical. Are we in agreement that heating, air conditioning, I think we ought to leave out the "and," ventilation systems, plumbing, and electrical systems?
I have a quick comment. I just looked up the list of the CSI master format division numbers, and Division 22 is plumbing, Division 23 is heating, ventilation, and 26 is electrical. So plumbing comes first. So it'd be PME.
Let's go back to MEP. That's what we call the course.
Everybody knows it by that.
Yeah. So do we want to follow the CSI new master format?
Is that age-related like Blueprint was?
Well, it'd be the new
system.
the new system.
is the new system.
The only reason that they do that way, I believe, is if you think about it, plumbing goes in before HVAC and HVAC goes in before electrical. So they're doing it in construction order.
What a concept.
I think we just need to, do we want to follow the master format, leave it as is, or go with MEP?
Go with I guess we need to take a vote, because the flow out there, everybody's MEP, but if, again, I think we should come to a vote. What do y'all think?
Okay, so all in favor, raise your hands of an MEP order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is the majority. So let's go with an MEP order. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing.
Systems.
That's the new title?
Yes, we're going to change the title and description and course outcomes to follow the MEP order.
Can you read the outcomes again, so I know?
So the new title is Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing Systems in Construction 1. The new course description is a presentation of the basic mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components in construction and the relationship to residential and light commercial buildings. And then the outcomes identify equipment and components of heating, air conditioning, ventilation, electrical, and plumbing systems.
Are you changing the second part too?
And describe the relationships between the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, and discuss implications of sustainable building designs on, building systems on design. Okay, so, does someone move?
I don't understand what on design is. I mean, this is not a design course, is it?
Well, it's implications on the design.
Yeah,
Implications.
I'd recommend we drop those two words. I think that's very confusing.
Yeah, because discuss implications of sustainable building systems. Your HVAC is
Yes.
far more efficient and all those kind of things. You're not designing them, are you? You're talking about,
I'm thinking they're thinking on not designing them, but how it's someone has, if the effect on the building, and not necessarily designing the building. I think its interpretation is a little different. It may be confusing to someone else, though. And on the instead of saying sustainable building systems on the design, we could probably say sustainable building systems on the structure.
I think that's more confusing, because structure is a separate component of the building.
Or on the,
You could just say, discuss implications of sustainable building systems,
Systems.
period.
yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, I'll
All
go
right.
with that.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And discuss implications of sustainable building systems, period. All right. Is there a motion to accept these changes as they were read?
I'll motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion on the matter? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, construction methods and materials. 1, introduction to construction materials and methods and their applications. Outcomes, identify construction materials, list their applications, and describe the various methods of construction. Explain the development and use of new materials being introduced to the construction industry under sustainable building standards. I think the only, in all of this, they have materials and methods, and I think we all know it as materials and methods. I would recommend that we change the title to Construction Materials and Methods 1.
I agree, because we teach it that way. We talk
Material
about the
and methods.
materials, and then we talk about how they're used.
The course description, introduction to construction materials and methods and their applications, that's pretty straightforward. The outcomes, identify construction materials, list their applications, and describe the various methods of construction. And then it says, explain the development and use of new materials being introduced to the construction industry under sustainable building standards. Does anybody have any problems with that?
What's the definition that you use for standards?
There's a whole different bunch. You either got LEED or you've got the Green Building Code. It's a good point.
Which
I think
are
we
not
ought to-
standard.
And they're not, they're not standards. They are recommendations, really, all they are.
Now, there are a couple of standards. ICC 700, which is a residential building standard.
What about just using the word concepts?
I like that one. industry under sustainable building concepts. Okay.
Right behind, explain the development and use of new materials, should you put "and their applications"? Or is
Explain
that
the
too wordy?
development, use, and applications.
The development and use of new materials and their applications being introduced.
I think to make it concise, explain the development, use, and applications of new materials. Being introduced to the construction industry under sustainable building concepts. Okay. So the new end of course outcomes reads, identify construction materials, list their applications, and describe the various methods of construction. Explain the development, use, and applications of new materials being introduced to the construction industry under sustainable building concepts. And we are changing the title to Construction Materials and Methods 1.
Not to be too picky. But there are those of us that do like wordsmithing, and I'm not an English teacher either, but are we using semicolons properly in that first sentence?
I don't think so.
It should just be commas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just for clarification, that's kind of called the style for the WECM courses, is that each outcome is separated by a semicolon. So it may not be grammatically or English proper, but it's kind of the style of, like, if you look at any course, all of the outcomes they'll be separated by a semicolon. And that's just kind of, normally we have like a list of 10 outcomes, and a lot of them might have ands or other, or they might have lists. And so just to keep it consistent, we use the semicolon to separate them.
Consistently wrong, is that the concept?
Exactly, yes.
All right. So, does somebody move to accept the changes as read?
I'll move.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion on this course? All in favor of accepting as read?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. These changes carry forward. Next course. Building codes and inspections. The course description, building codes and standards applicable to building construction and inspection processes. End of course outcomes. Identify various construction classifications and occupancy categories. Cross-reference the guidelines, tables, charts, and specifications as presented in the building codes, and determine if construction meets building codes. So let's start with the title, Building Codes and Inspections. Any comments? Okay. Course description, building codes and standards applicable to building construction and inspection processes. Comment? Okay.
Does that teach it as a group, residential and commercial? Since broken out in the codes.
Yeah,
Yes.
the IBC has now broken it into two separate things. We basically concentrate on the commercial.
And
Pardon? Yeah, the IBC.
IBC, international, the ICC's base codes.
That's their building
There's
code,
commercial
yeah.
and there's residential. The IBC, the IRC. We teach it as a unit, as we, considering that the inspections and the codes, we give the difference between the two. But we also, if we're doing inspections, we talk about everything you have to follow in the codes. But yeah, we focus more on residential, but it's kind of a blend trying to find a good book to cover this subject is really hard.
Well, it gets problematic in the field because City of Austin, they kind of,
Well,
they're doing the commercial code as opposed to the residential.
I think we need to stay away from which
Austin, yes.
codes. Well, no, because it's up to each individual municipality on what code they adopt. So we have to keep it
I mean,
general.
There would be some value of summarizing the different
well, I think
codes that they might
what
use.
the state, there's a state code for residential, and that is the latest IRC. Commercial-wise, though, it's across the board. The years, I think when I was doing one point, I found a code, some city had a code that was 1976. And it's just like out of date. But I know you've come across, between Dallas and Garland, they had two separate codes. And you get a building crossing that county, that city line, it's just like, but we mention it, we talk about it, we literally say, okay, there's a good chance, we know we do focus on residential, but we know there's a good chance you're going to hit commercial periodically, especially light commercial. And we kind of try to blend them together. I try to, at least for me, because I teach this course, that you tell them both sides of the coin. You're saying that there is a big difference between the IRC and the IBC. But we have to cover the IBC because there is residential in the IBC.
Well, and I think those aren't the only codes either. I mean, we're now dealing with the energy code,
The energy
the green
codes,
building
and they're
code
even,
and
the energy code is separated now into two, residential and commercial.
the life safety code.
Life safety codes, the NFPA.
And it's quite difficult only because sometimes one of the code books relates to the other one, and then we go back to that other one. So I think it goes from residential to building to the NEC and goes back and
as you said,
forth.
is the massive codes is, I always tell my students, is that code book is not the whole thing. If you took all the references they go to,
Exactly.
you can fill a library with it. And those are everything. So you got to give it general. I think basically just saying building codes, inspections, various, standards, and that's really is. Building codes and standards is part of this group. So I would like to keep the standards in there.
Okay, so course description, building codes and standards applicable to building construction and inspection processes. We'll leave it the way it is. End of course outcomes. Identify various construction classifications and occupancy categories. Cross-reference the guidelines, tables, charts, and specifications as presented in the building codes and determine if construction meets building codes. Does anybody have anything to add or take away or leave it as is?
We may want to add to the end of that, building codes and standards,
Okay.
because we mentioned it's in the course description. And the standards are whatever the building codes reference.
Okay. So basically, the only change we're making to this course is at the end of the outcome statement, it'll say "and standards," period. Okay. Does anybody move to accept these changes as read?
I move.
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right,
James
Miss-
Howard.
Mr. Howard is moving, and Ms.,
Noah.
okay. Robert, Mr. Noah is seconding them. Any further discussion on this course? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the changes carry. Motion passes. All right, next course. All right. Construction Estimating 1. Course description, fundamentals of estimating materials and labor costs in construction. End of course outcomes, explain estimating procedures, estimate materials from blueprints, estimate cost of waste removal and recycling related to sustainable construction processes and calculate labor units and cost. Okay, so the title, Construction Estimating 1. Any comments? Okay, I think we're pretty much going to leave it as is. Course description, fundamentals of estimating materials and labor costs in construction.
That's a good title.
I mean, the only thing that you could add to that would be equipment, because those are the
That's
three
kinda what
main
I was
things.
thinking,
Three
is
main things is
equipment.
labor, equipment, and
Material,
materials.
equipment, and labor cost.
So fundamentals of estimating materials, comma, equipment, and labor costs in construction. Okay?
You guys don't teach any indirect costs?
That's part of the materials, equipment, and labor costs. Yeah, but with overhead, and I do think in our outcomes, we need to talk
You don't have
about.
overhead and profit?
Yeah, we do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, I think we have to have that.
I think in the course description, fundamentals of estimating materials, equipment, and labor costs in construction, and then going into the outcomes, explain estimating procedures. Estimate materials from construction drawings.
This might be a case where you would want construction documents, because in order to do an estimate, you have to
You have to
refer to the
have the
spec book
specs,
as well.
that's correct. Or should we say contract documents? Because contract documents includes the drawings, the specs, and any other, and the contract.
Yeah, contract
Which is an
documents.
important aspect, so I think contract. Just contract documents.
Contract documents.
So estimate materials from contract documents. Estimate cost of waste removal. I think that is so specific. Yeah, I think we need to cover, explain estimating procedures, estimate materials, equipment, labor, and other overhead or other overhead costs. So estimate materials, equipment, labor, and overhead?
Well, I think I think this, the estimated waste materials, removal of recyclable to sustainable construction processes needs to go at the very end, because we got here, then we say, and calculate labor and unit costs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's out of place to me.
Well,
when we're trying
maybe
to say that.
instead of,
I think instead of saying waste and removal, but I think we say, and related to sustainable construct, take out the waste estimate, the cost of waste removal and recycling, and then we can add in sustainable, and as related to sustainable construction processes. You know, well, here,
I think
I'll
it's
start
kinda-
over. I'll start over. Okay, explain estimating procedures, estimate materials from construction documents. Excuse me, contract documents, and calculate labor, units, and cost. And as related to construction, sustainable construction processes.
honestly, I think that's a little specific, because when you're, with the estimating, these are all things that you've got to calculate, whether it's sustainable materials or non-sustainable materials. I think just materials, equipment, labor, and,
You could also just take out the, of waste
Yeah.
removal and stay, explain estimating procedures, estimate materials from contract documents, estimate costs related to sustainable construction processes, and calculate labor units and costs.
I just think we ought to take out the waste of removal and recyclables. of
Because that
sustainable-
will even, it'll come in with the existing conditions, you know, whatever is out there, we have to get rid of it.
Just shorten it to explain estimating procedures, estimate material from contract documents, and calculate labor units and cost.
Do we want to put anything in there about overhead, or is that
Cost, no.
or just other related project costs or construction costs? And calculate labor units and other related
You know,
construction
I think
costs?
that in whatever estimating book you have, the indirect costs is already, you know, part of the whole estimating process, so. But I think this takes it directly to materials, equipment, and labor, which I
Okay.
think that should be sufficient.
I wonder, you know, as you discuss direct and indirect, I kind of don't really understand what explain estimating procedures really means, because then you say estimate this, that, and that. But I wonder if you did explain estimating procedures, including direct, indirect, and profit or something like that. I mean, or is that getting too?
Because explaining estimating procedures talks about how you, the different steps in going in, and there's different methods of estimating and different types of estimates. So in that class, at least the way I teach it, is covering, you know, the different types of estimates and the different ways of tackling that, which everybody has their own method. Because I look at that separately as from the labor, equipment, and materials.
This is what I'll bring up. It seems that and a lot of these courses have some kind of component with the sustainable construction, and I believe there was a movement to include that in all course descriptions or course learning outcomes. So I'm kind of, I guess, reluctant to take that statement out of the outcomes.
Sustainability should be a regular practice that they're moving
Right.
towards.
But I guess the idea is that they wanted to make sure, I guess you would say, not that it's assumed or whatever, that it's actually explicitly stated in the outcomes.
At Northlake, we specifically have a program that's related to all of the entire college, and it's called Sage Scholars. It was called a Green Diploma, but DCCCD came down on us for calling it a diploma when it really isn't. So they've changed it to Sage Scholars now, and their recognition is they get to wear a green cord at graduation if they've taken at least 15 credit hours of courses that deal with sustainability. So we're trying to get that component into as many of our construction management classes as possible.
So I guess my point is, if you want to maybe shorten it, I'm not sure if waste removal and recycling is too specific, but to at least estimate cost of, or estimate costs related to sustainable construction, would that work?
You might want to throw safety in there if we're throwing in
Yeah, I think we're
motherhood and
getting
apple
too-
pie.
Yeah.
I would I'd put safety in too.
Well, I'm just saying that it's already in there,
Right. Well,
the sustainable construction.
I don't know, I think in this, it seems kind of, if it was, when it was added, it was,
Well,
Right, and that's my point. It seems like they were trying to put it in as many, to make it explicit in as many courses as possible or applicable.
You know, to build on Dwayne's point, about 2004, 2005, somewhere in that timeline, that's when all this well, maybe not all, but we really started talking about green buildings, sustainable. And at that time, lots of community colleges started going, oh, we're going to get a green construction degree. And some of those were approved by the coordinating board. And what we quickly found out, not really me, meaning we, the coordinating board, because I wasn't here at that time, but we, the community college sector, found out was there really wasn't no such thing as a green construction degree. It was green should be incorporated in every course, and it rapidly was. And so perhaps to Dwayne's point, that's where the sustainable piece was put in every construction course, 12 years ago or so, somewhere in that ballpark. Well, to Laura's point, maybe it should come out now because we know that everything is green, and I don't think you build a house, Ray, without an energy efficient air conditioning system and other components that make the house as efficient and sustainable. And I remember one of the earlier buildings, one of the earlier meetings talking about the building envelope and make sure it's sealed for maximum energy efficiency. And maybe those are just standards now that everybody knows, and it doesn't have to be, it's implied and it doesn't have to be explicit.
And then that's what I think, and I think it's, at the time it was put in, it was largely a political or something at the time, whereas we're trying to keep broad, where we can adapt.
Well, I think at the time, there were not a lot of things. I think LEED was the only really focused, everybody had it. Now we've got green building codes that are now incorporating them into actually the building codes themselves. You've got cities like Dallas, that's part of their building code. They've adopted it. Besides the regular building code, they've adopted the green building code. Your energy code now is focused on sustainability, on energy use. And that's where that's coming in from. So it's now actually now being incorporated into the construction industry as an automatic.
Well, and I think just one more thing to consider also, I mean, like I mentioned earlier, it is mentioned in several specific courses. In fact, several that we just went over as well. So there might be an element of, in order to make sure that it's still recognized, because some institutions might be specifically looking for those terms as opposed to just presuming. So.
In the other classes or the other course descriptions, I don't see a problem with seeing those in there, but I do see a problem with listing it in this one, because estimating covers the entire design as it's designed,
Yes.
whether it's sustainable or not.
Yeah, you don't,
The other point here, if we're adding contract documents, I mean, that also can relate to, for us to verify whether it's a sustainable building too, right? So,
I mean, you're already going to know it when you go into
Yeah.
the project. It's not going to be something, you're not going to be doing value engineering to turn it into a sustainable project. Unless
So I
that's-
think
that's
when
a-
it- so I
that's a
think when it
landlord-
comes
That's
to-
an owner's decision. That means you go back to the drawing board.
So I think when it comes to the estimating component, though, I mean, if it's insulation, yeah, it's all insulated now, the material, and that's where the extra cost may come in, but it's differentiates whether we're using some type of material that's going to be sustainable or
But
for
the
energy
design
efficient.
professional specifies
Exactly, which
what
goes
it
back to
is.
the construction document.
Yeah, so you have to.
So the
you still have
importance
to
is
specify
the
it.
estimating of materials, regardless of what type of material is going to be.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree to take that portion out of the course description outcome.
Explain estimating procedures, estimate materials from contract documents, and calculate labor units and costs. Does someone move to accept these changes as read?
I make a motion to move those changes as read.
Okay.
I second it.
Mr. Sanchez moves. Mr. Howard seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. All right, we will take a 30-minute break and return at 11:12. 12-12, sorry. 12-12.
We already passed 11-12. Done that. We don't have construction management too. Our curriculum. Did you guys get to sign this?
Jennifer. The next class we're looking at is project scheduling. Course description is a study of conventional scheduling using critical path method, precedence, and arrow networks, bar charts, monthly reports, and fast track scheduling. End of course outcomes. Flowchart diagrams using the precedence networks. Utilize the forward pass and back pass in scheduling procedures. Construct bar charts and calculate critical paths in scheduling. Is there any discussion or comments on the title? None? Okay, leave it as is. That's pretty self-explanatory. All right, course description. Is there any comments on the course description? None. Okay.
I don't think anybody does arrow networks anymore, unless you put them on blueprints. At least we don't. I mean, maybe some of you guys do. I don't know. That's,
I don't know. I don't teach that class. I can't speak.
yeah,
to that.
I do.
And a lot of people use different, so do you think that that's an obsolete? Okay, so precedence and arrow networks, do we just want to take and arrow
Yeah.
and leave precedent networks in? Okay. Okay, so the course description now reads a study of conventional scheduling using critical path method, precedence networks, bar charts, monthly reports, and fast track scheduling. Okay. End of course outcomes. Prepare flowchart diagrams using the precedent networks. Utilize the forward pass and back pass in scheduling procedures. Construct bar charts and calculate critical paths in scheduling. Any comments on that? Okay. So the only change is to remove and arrow from course description. Does anybody move to accept these changes as read?
So moved.
Mr. Noah moves. Anybody second? Mr. Bosher seconds. Any further discussion on this course? All in favor of accepting these changes, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. For the purposes of, I have a feeling that the next two classes are going to take the majority of the discussion. I'd like to skip those for now and get the other two out of the way, and then we can come back to this. The practicum or field experience, construction, engineering, technology technician.
I just wanted to point out that this is kind of a standard course format for all disciplines, and it's not really, the description and outcomes aren't really tied to a specific discipline. So I guess in short, we don't really have the opportunity to modify this course.
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and just read through it. The practicum, the title, practicum or field experience, construction, engineering, technology technician. Course description, practical general workplace training supported by an individualized learning plan developed by the employer, college, and student. End of course outcomes as outlined in the learning plan. Apply the theory, concepts, and skills involving specialized materials tools, equipment, procedures, regulations, laws, and interactions within and among political, economic, environmental, social, and legal systems associated with the occupation and the business/industry, and will demonstrate legal and ethical behavior, safety practices, interpersonal and teamwork skills, and appropriate written and verbal communication skills, using the terminology of the occupation and the business/industry.
It's one long sentence. And only one syllable.
Yeah. So knowing that we really can't change it, does anybody really have any heartburn over any of what I just read?
My only concern is that this is basically matches our co-op class, our cooperative education class, in which the student gets college credit for their job, okay? But our course number is not listed here. Ours is 2380.
Well, there's a practicum and there's a co-op. Just for our certificate students, we use the practicum, and for the associates, we use the co-op. I don't know, is this the one we want to use for the?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
There is no difference, but when we differentiate for that student, in other words, a student with a certificate degree, we come and add this one to their program. I guess if a student is in the certificate program and they wants to pursue the associate's degree, are we going to have another course for them at the end?
You asking us?
I mean, that's really what we're.
We use this one for our associate's degree, or capstone.
I use a different, but it's essentially the same thing. It's just under the drafting, but it's the same thing.
Which is, they're all the 80s, 13, 23, 80, or CM, whatever. It's the 80s courses.
Could I ask a dumb question? What's the difference between co-op and practicum?
I don't know that there is one. I think in just our last meeting, when we adopted these list of courses, we felt that that was the most applicable course, and that was chosen.
Sometimes a practicum can be unpaid. So the word practicum can be paid or unpaid. Cooperative, oftentimes definitely in the world that I work in the high school world, a practicum can be paid or unpaid. So maybe that's the
I
difference.
think that's the reason why we chose this one instead of the co-op, because about the payment thing.
And I guess for greater flexibility, you can say practicum or co-op.
Well, and I know that we added on the description, we put practicum or field experience. So,
Right, yeah, that's the title of the practicum course.
Well, I guess what I'm asking is, would we have to take our 2380 out of our program and put one of these in its place?
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying. If you want, if it's the will of the committee, we can add a co-op. So we can say practicum or field experience or co-op into the field program of study. And that we could use either one.
we just have to be sure that you all understand that if a student was to transfer from Dallas to Alamo, that if you use the 2266 and you use the 2380, that you're going to accept that. Remember, because that's the whole point of the program of study, is that there's that consistency. So I think, I do recall, at the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about this particular one as well, because some folks were using something different, but I guess at the end, you all decided on this one, so.
Because I think it does occur to me about the paid, unpaid, because not every student was able to get a job, that some of them are they're getting just class credit out of it.
Well, the way we've handled that and currently handling it is we have them do volunteer work for Habitat. And we count that toward their co-op.
Then,
That would be an unpaid practicum, not a co-op. So I think in terms, if you're lining up with terms, say what we're doing with high school, if you want to line up so that high school and post-secondary look the same, then the term practicum is actually the new buzzword.
And also for the discussions, at least at our own college, is they really want to get away from the word internships and move towards the practicums. So, and that
that
was
may
a
have-
directive from the college.
I was going to say, and that may have been an element, I think, Donna, you might have mentioned that at the last meeting, which is why this might have also been selected at that point. So.
So with that, any further discussion? I mean, we really can't change it, but I'm just kind of getting it in the meeting minutes. All right, well, all in favor of accepting as is, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Do I need to make a motion first? Do we need, okay. Yeah, okay. So now let's go to the OSHA class. OSHA regulations, construction industry. Course description, a study of occupational safety and health administration, OSHA regulations pertinent to the construction industry. End of course outcomes. Identify the OSHA regulations which apply to the construction industry and demonstrate proficiency in retrieving specific information from Title 29 CFR Part 1926 regulations.
I have a question. Again, our course is not listed here. We're doing OSHT 1313, which is more of managing safety rather than just the safety regulations themselves. It's more management of those regulations. So could we have a look, can we get a look at what WECM has for OSHT 1313?
I was under the understanding that the reason we were doing this OSHA is to implement the OSHA 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, okay. But see, that's one thing we make as a distinction with ours, because a lot of students come in and say, am I going to get a certificate for this? And it's, no, because that's like a 30-hour class. This is a complete semester class, and it's about the management of OSHA regulations, not the OSHA regulations.
But I think that the group wanted the OSHA 30 as a part of this training, was why we went with this course.
Okay.
We do 1210 for some reason. Basic construction safety.
I think at this point, we already agreed as a group what courses, and if we don't want to go back, especially
Okay.
after we voted and adopted.
Okay.
This course, 1305 was the one that was, like Laura said, agreed upon for the program of study and has already been part of the recommendation to the larger group, so.
And the minimum contact hours in the course is 48. And so even if it is incorporating the OSHA 30, they're still assuming the OSHA 30 takes 30 hours to train and that kind of stuff. There's still 18 more hours of how do these apply and that kind of things.
So is there any discussion or comment on the title, OSHA Regulations Construction Industry? Okay. Is there any discussion on the course description, a study of occupational safety and health administration, OSHA regulations pertinent to the construction industry? Okay. End of course outcomes. Identify the OSHA regulations which apply to the construction industry and demonstrate proficiency in retrieving specific information from Title 29 CFR Part 1926 regulations. So do we just want to leave this course as is, with no changes? All right, do we need to do movement or anything like? Okay, since there's no changes. All in favor of keeping it as it is, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries, so that class is, now let's go to Construction Management 1 and 2. Construction Management 1. Management skills on the job site. Topics include written and oral communications, leadership and motivation, problem solving, and decision making. End of course outcomes. Define terms associated with construction supervision, leadership, motivation, problem solving, and decision making. Demonstrate problem solving and decision making skills in construction problems. Apply green and sustainable building codes and standards. Demonstrate techniques for successful contractor interaction, including professional protocol and communication. I'm going to go ahead and read the construction management too, because when we're looking at it, comparing the two. Construction Management 2, course description, a management course in contract documents, safety, planning, scheduling, production control, law and labor issues. Topics include contracts, planning, cost and production peripheral documents, and cost and work analysis. End of course outcomes, develop skills in construction contract documents, planning and scheduling, and cost and production controls, and explain the legal implication related to construction projects. Plan, schedule, and document a construction project, including the use of sustainable rating systems. That's what we do too. So Construction Management 1 and 2, probably not going to change the title. Is everybody fine with those two titles? Okay. Now that you're looking at the two classes side by side, are there any comments on the course descriptions for Construction Management 1? Are there any comments on the end of course outcomes for Construction Management 1? So no changes to Construction Management 1?
No, I'm sorry. I don't remember us jettisoning intro to construction management. I don't remember that from the last meeting, that it was just jettisoned.
What do you mean?
Well, we teach intro. We don't do construction management 1. We do introduction to construction management. And then we do management 2 as the capstone. This is different than intro. Because intro is an overview of all the different aspects of the industry.
Elizabeth, do you remember what that discussion concerning the intro class?
Okay, it says CMBT. Yeah, I'm sorry. CMBT 2342, Construction Management 1, CMBT 1301, Introduction to Construction Management, and CMBT 1309, Basic Construction Management. Course descriptions and learning outcomes were reviewed, compared, and discussed for similarity, overlap, and best applicability for the program. Discussed further into components and applicability in POS for Management 2, commercial versus residential, capstone, co-op, practicum, or internship. And based upon my notes, it seems that the majority taught 2342. And that's how it got decided on that. But there was a discussion, I remember we kept pulling up the descriptions on the screen for the 3 courses, because those 3 courses were discussed heavily together.
Yeah, because we currently have an intro class, and then we have the 2342, where we incorporate 1 and 2 into that, but they get an overview.
Now, my additional notes also indicate that the discussion was that the reason for this meeting was to incorporate and looking at the learning outcomes for 1301 and 1309 and plugging them into this one, since this was the decided course for the program of study.
You know, at one point, I had that CNBT 1309, and then the following semester, they had to take Construction Management 2, and I would see that correlation, because in the book also, I couldn't seem to find the right book to distinguish both concepts. And then they come back to Construction Management 1, and it's really all about themselves and their leadership and their motivation. So I had a very difficult time with that concept, the way it was set up. So then one semester I go, you know what, let's do Construction Management 1, Construction Management 2. That way I wouldn't overlap the concepts of the 1309, the basic, and the Construction Management 2 class. So I think when there was the 1309 and this 2344, there are some concepts there that have some similarities.
Well, you know, when you're covering, because I have the same issue with this, when you teach an overview, you're like, okay, here are all the players of the game, but you're also going, this is what a lump sum is, this is what a cost plus fee, but construction management, you really go into the contract and what those contracts mean. So it's kind of like, where do you stop? You just kind of get a taste, and then you go into it more in detail in this other class, but you may be utilizing the same book.
Yeah.
And I can understand I have the same issue. But it's kind of, see if y'all want to incorporate anything from that into this construction management one.
Just a prefix.
Well, it's the 1301 and 1309 that are almost, you can say they can have some similarity also with the 2344, which is a Construction Management 2.
Identify types.
So it's 1301, 1309, and 2344, or
Yeah, 2342.
So 1301 it's overview of the construction industry. Identify types of construction and organizational structures, explain purposes for various construction documents, describe the responsibilities of the construction office and field operations, identify environmental health and safety agency requirements, identify the various construction crafts and trades, and describe green and sustainable building practices and standards. Very similar, which is, I think, with one thing that everybody was in agreement with is that they're teaching 2 courses. So whether it's intro and management 1 or management 1 and management 2. So how do y'all want to? Right.
Seems like intro and management 1 would be
1309.
combine those two.
The provides an integrated look at the practice of construction management on the job site. Describe basic skills used in human resources management. Identify the tools and techniques used by the job site manager in planning and scheduling a construction project, and develop a site layout plan for equipment and materials delivery and erection processes. Develop a safety and loss control plan for a typical construction project, Explain the use of construction documents on the construction project and explain the purpose of weekly project meetings.
See, that's what I'm saying. It's almost like 2344 construction management too. So 1301, 1309, and 2344 are, there's so many similarities in them.
Is there anything, if we were to look at 2344, anything we feel like we need to take from these course descriptions or outcomes and add into that, into either of these courses?
The description for construction management 1, is this a new description? We rewrote the course outcome description?
This
Audio
is
course
a-
outcome, or is it just actually directly out of the,
This is
This-
currently out of WECM.
currently out of Wickham? Okay, that tells me, because I'm looking at our curriculum, our description for this course outcome description, and it's a combination of both this one and construction management 2, blended together.
That's what, yeah, we do as
They
well.
blended them together, so literally we're teaching both courses at the same time.
And did you have an intro or?
No.
No.
I do.
Yeah.
But I
See,
do
so
the
the
same
intro,
thing.
yeah. So I somehow looked at all of them and I ended up doing the same thing with all of them.
Dwayne, what's the usage on these courses?
Laura?
So are you saying that in your program you have the intro course, the management 1, and the management 2?
We just have intro and management 1. But what I've done is incorporate the outcomes for management 2 into management 1.
That's the way I would set it up.
Yeah.
Because I would do the 1309, and at that time we had construction management 2, and I go, wait a minute, what am I going to teach them if I had already done in 1309, the intro, or the intro course?
And I think what we were looking at was when we decided these courses, management 1 and 2, it was giving you 2 classes of management skills in construction, and then we would come back and revise these to fit.
Yeah, because initially, even on the first list that we had, we didn't have the management 2. And it was during that discussion of those 3 other courses that it popped up. That's why it was included in the POS at the end, so.
Because we could add to construction management 1 an overview of the construction industry.
We would need that added.
That would make sense if construction management 1 has that component in there. Because we would like to give them an intro first before, and then after that, do the problem-solving, motivation, and leadership also part of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is showing 1309 is taught by 4 colleges. Then 1301, these 7 colleges. Eight colleges use 1301, and then Houston uses 1201.
So let's go back to the CMBT 1301 and 1309 descriptions. So the course description on 1301 is overview of the construction industry, and I get the impression that a lot of people would like to add that to Construction Management 1 in the description. So if we were to say in the course description, add in overview of the construction industry, period. Yes, in the course description. And then management skills on the job site. Let's look at 1309's description. It says provides an integrated look at the practice of construction management on the job site. Do we want to incorporate any of that verbiage into this course description or Construction Management 2? Sounds like Construction Management 2 is kind of that way.
It is.
So, if we have the course description for Construction Management 1 is overview of the construction industry, management skills on the job site. Topics include written and oral communications, leadership and motivation, problem solving, and decision making. The course description for Construction Management 2 is a management course in contract documents, safety, planning, scheduling, production control, law and labor issues. Topics include contracts, planning, cost and production peripheral documents, and cost and work analysis. Does anybody wish to change or add to either of those course descriptions as they've been read?
Okay,
Do we want
in the
anything,
management
add
one.
anything about ethics?
In Management 1, it kind of mentions, I mean, we can talk about, demonstrate techniques for successful contractor interaction, including professional protocol and communication. In the end of course outcomes. I'm just talking about descriptions and getting past that one right now.
Okay.
So if we're fine with the descriptions, let's, we are,
From 1309?
no, we're not adding it. The only add was overview of the construction industry to the course description for Construction Management 1. All right, now looking at the end of course outcomes for Construction Management 1. Define terms associated with construction supervision, leadership, motivation, problem-solving, decision-making. Demonstrate problem-solving and decision-making skills in construction problems. Apply green and sustainable building codes and standards. Demonstrate techniques for successful contractor interaction, including professional protocol and communication. CMBT 1301 end of course outcomes include identify types of construction and organizational structures. Explain purposes for various construction documents, describe responsibilities of construction office and field operations, identify environmental health and safety agency requirements, identify various construction crafts and trades, describe green and sustainable building practices and standards. Do y'all feel like you want to include any of that verbiage into these end of course outcomes? I think identify types of construction and organizational structures and explain purposes for various construction documents. Maybe even describe responsibilities of the construction office and field operations. The other stuff's kind of included in Construction Management 2 or in the outcomes already. What do y'all think? So the first three. There. Adding that to the course description.
This is in construction management 1 or 2?
This is to put into Management 1.
Management 1.
Okay. It says apply green and sustainable building codes and standards in management one.
What I was going to say, based on, first of all, green and sustainable, isn't that redundant? Okay, so that's redundant. I would just do sustainable. And then, based on what we decided earlier, instead of having standards and practices and standards, just change that to concepts.
So sustainable building codes and concepts.
Add this to the front of the, to the very beginning of the end of course outcome description.
Yeah, okay. So the end of course outcomes now read, identify types of construction and organizational structures, explain purposes for various construction documents, describe the responsibilities of the construction office and field operations, define terms associated with construction supervision, leadership, motivation, problem-solving and decision-making, demonstrate problem-solving and decision-making skills in construction problems, apply sustainable building codes and concepts, demonstrate techniques for successful contractor interaction, including professional protocol and communication. Yes.
Everybody want to step out? I've got to go upstairs for a conference call. And so if y'all finish all this work up and I never see y'all again, that's okay. But I don't mean that in a negative or derogatory sense at all.
See you, Gary. All right, so does anybody move to accept the changes to Construction Management 1 as written?
A motion.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, the full course, Construction Management 1, the course description reads, overview of the construction industry, management skills on the job site. Topics include written and oral communications, leadership and motivation, problem solving, and decision making. End of course outcomes. Identify types of construction and organizational structures. Explain purposes for various construction documents. Describe the responsibilities of the construction office and field operations. Define terms associated with construction supervision, leadership, motivation, problem solving, and decision making. Demonstrate problem solving and decision making skills in construction problems. Apply sustainable building codes and concepts. Demonstrate techniques for successful contractor interaction, including professional protocol and communication. Does someone move to accept these changes?
I just have one more comment before
Okay.
we move on. Where it says construction, responsibilities of the construction office and field operations, do we maybe feel that we should have the responsibilities of the key players, which is the owner, the architects, and the general contractors?
Do we just want to say the responsibilities of the key players? Or
Instead of directing straight to the construction office and its field operation. I mean,
About, describe the roles and responsibilities of the key players.
because when we get to the general contractor, then that's where we can relate to the construction office and field operations. But I think they need to have an understanding of the responsibility of the architect and the owner.
I think, describe the roles and responsibilities of the key players in the building industry or in building a project.
Yeah. that's it.
Yes, so we're changing that to describe the roles and responsibilities of the key players in the building industry.
Like that.
And then scratch construction office and field operations. Okay, does someone move to accept these changes? All right, Mr.
second
Howard
that motion.
moves. Mr. Sanchez seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. All right, last class, Construction Management 2, sorry. We already talked about in the course description, a management course in contract documents, safety, planning, scheduling, production control, law and labor issues. Topics include contracts, planning, cost and production peripheral documents, and cost and work analysis. Any comments on the description? Okay, end of course outcomes. Develop skills in construction contract documents, planning and scheduling, and cost and production controls, and explain the legal implication related to construction projects. Plan, schedule, and document a construction project, including the use of sustainable rating systems. Any changes to this course at all? Do y'all want to include any verbiage from 1309? Okay.
I think the only item that's not there is a site layout and plan for equipment, but I don't think that's, the planning takes care of it here.
So do you,
Does this specifically say you have to do a plan for a specific project? I'd like to kind of loosen that up a bit. It sounds to me like you have to have like a class exercise where they do a construction plan.
I don't think you have to. I think it's
Right,
just.
I'd like to loosen that up
Yeah,
a
well-
bit.
I don't
To
think
demonstrate skills required or something like that. I mean, it says plan, schedule, and document a project. I think that's a little tight. Maybe you,
I
mean-
think that's,
The way we do it, basically, like I said, we use Construction Management 2 as our capstone. And what they do is they divide, the dean teaches that class, he divides the class into teams, and they put together a proposal for one of our buildings.
and we have, being able to plan and lay out a construction project is a skill that needs to be.
no, I agree with that, but do you have do they actually do it in your classes? One particular project, the whole class?
Well, not they, right now with the enrollment, we just have individual students doing these projects, putting together projects. Their own, not a team.
But I guess the word planning, though, can be used for many different purposes, and I think it can cover the site layout and plan for equipment and materials, so. I guess the word planning is very vague,
Yeah.
and that can leave us a little bit more room for,
As long as we understand
or
it to
however
be
we want
vague,
to
that's-
set it up.
Okay.
So, do we just want to vote to accept as is? So all in favor of accepting Construction Management 2 as it is written, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion passes, and we have developed our course descriptions and outcomes for our program of study.
Will we be able to get? Sorry.
Okay, so did you all want to discuss anything, like, one of the elements I'm concerned with is, like, for instance, on 1301, you all have basically incorporated elements of it. Does that mean that you all want to archive 1301 or 1309, or, I mean, I'm just curious, I mean, because that was part of the opportunity for this particular group.
There's no if. The other course that we just adopted, Construction Management 1, has those concepts of, and I don't think we need it anymore.
Right. So do we want to archive CNBT 1301, Introduction to the Building Industry, or the construction industry?
It's currently being taught by 9 schools, or however many there are.
But some of those concepts have already, I mean, we've incorporated that verbiage on
Yeah,
1301
the
to cover
point of
that.
the program of study is that everybody's going to have to change.
Because I can tell you what, I brought in 1309 back from because I had already, I didn't have it anymore, so I brought it back only to help me, organize how I was planning the management 1 and 2. But now I just need construction management 1 and construction management 2, and it takes care of it for me.
Once the program of study is fully approved all the way through to the board, which there's still time, because as you all know, there's system processes as it goes, Once we get this all set up and together, since the advisory committee has already reviewed these courses and agrees with y'all's recommendations, the program of study still has to go out for comment. And then it still will be reviewed by our division board. And then once they're okay with it, then it would go to the board itself. And then you all will have a transition period, So you can make the recommendation that these, whatever courses you identify to be archived at that time. And so that way, it's not we're saying stop now, so that way there's still time. But just letting you know the procedure, it's still a bit of time before this goes into full effect, till it's approved all the way through.
So does someone want to make a motion to archive that class or to leave it in there and what time will tell?
What earthly reason would we have to archive it?
Well, okay,
If Texas Southernmost College wants to teach it, more power to them.
but in getting to the whole idea of standardizing the program across the state, that becomes a confusion issue. Because, just to give you guys a little bit of history, we used to do construction management, we used to do intro, construction management 1, and construction management 2. And then 3 years ago, we took out construction management 1 and basically taught intro, because they were both being taught just about the same way. So now we're down to 1301 and then 2344. This change will get rid of 1301 and we'll put in management 1. We'll reinstate it to replace intro, and then we'll have management 2, which we're doing now anyway. But by leaving 1301 as an available course, doesn't that bring up some confusion issues?
Yeah, and we'll continue having issues.
And
in the
if
future.
we've incorporated everything from it into management 1, there really isn't any point.
Well, yeah, I think you're right on that, because if we've already incorporated everything into management 1, the school accepts it, and then they want to transfer, saying, well, it's equivalent. Says, well, then why didn't you teach management 1 if it's the exact same course?
You can bring the entire 1301 and 1309 and use it now in construction management 1. So all those objectives are still in there.
And the other part to remember is once the program of study is accepted, if a school is teaching 1301 and another school is teaching, 2342, they're not equivalent.
No.
You will not get credit for the 1301 towards your program. I mean, you can get credit, but not applicable, which is what, like, as we mentioned, we are trying to standardize, and that's the whole point of this. So just to keep that in the back of your brain.
Plus, if everybody's taking the different classes, the numbers at the state of how many, are taking that course, if it's spread out all over the place, they don't register as.
We've got to think of it, the students are going to be the one there going out and looking for the classes. They're not going to know this. So I I recommend that we do archive the old.
So do you move that we archive
I move
this?
to archive.
I'll second that motion.
So, Mr. Howard moves that we archive CMBT 1301, 1201, Introduction to the Construction Industry. It is seconded by Mr. Sanchez. All in favor of archiving this class, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. What about CMBT 1309? Do we want to archive that one as well?
I move that we archive CMBT 1309.
Okay, so Mr. Sanchez moves that we archive CMBT 1309, Basic Construction Management. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Howard seconds. All in favor of archiving this class as well? Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. We are archiving 2 classes. Okay. With that, next on the agenda,
I wanted to make sure.
yeah, I was looking at that too. Are there any other courses to archive? I would make a strong recommendation of computer-aided construction scheduling.
We teach it.
Huh?
We teach it.
But now that we got to teach project scheduling, isn't that the same thing? Can we pull up the course descriptions for the computer-aided construction scheduling?
$23.35.
You're teaching the software?
Advisory committee, that's.
We have it as an elective. They have the basic scheduling class they have to take as part of the program, and then the other one is offered as an elective.
Well, so one's teaching the theories and concepts, and this is teaching the software. That makes sense. Okay.
We teach this as the only scheduling class.
We used to, but then we switched to project scheduling.
Our advisory committee pushed us this way. They don't want people who are scared of the computer.
Back to later, because I know. But I can see, I need to look at it, see how we can incorporate, if we can incorporate this into construction management too, which we don't.
Well, and also keep in mind, I mean, the 10 courses that you all have recommended for the program of study at the 3-hour limit are only 29 hours. So you still have room to incorporate your electives or the specifics especially if led by your advisory committee is recommending to teach these. I mean, you can definitely add it in.
So,
I mean, there's still space there, but it just won't be part of the program of study because these 10 courses are specific. But because you do have extra hours, you can definitely plug those in.
so it sounds like we need to keep it in for now.
For right now.
That was the only other I saw, so.
How about the basic construction safety? Is that, are we,
If we're gonna take,
The OSHA class.
the OSHA class, general overall view of the, it's more focusing on the overall industry and gets a little bit into OSHA, but it's more of the general overall industry and the safety requirements. So it doesn't specifically talk about true OSHA requirements.
general safety?
And being safety managers and stuff like that and doing regular, I don't know, maybe as a safety management, which is a whole aspect of the building industry, I don't know that we necessarily want to cut that one out either, just yet.
Yeah.
Because I can foresee it being another
Just
niche.
yet.
Basic job site, construction safety, terms used in construction.
Toolbox talk.
We teach it as a 1-hour course. It's not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something we'll come back later to. Just like, we can see how, because once this goes in, people are going to start saying, okay, what do we have to shuffle around? Is it going to be that important for our department anymore, our classes? Graduation skills that the students need.
But everything that's on there is in the OSHA class. I mean, you say you teach this a 1-hour class. If you teach an OSHA class, it's going to cover everything that's on that, in that topic right there, plus more.
Well, in the OSHA description, though, it's very specific to, it says, identify the OSHA regulations which apply to the construction industry and demonstrate proficiency in retrieving specific information. I guess if this was a course that you were considering for archive, then I would encourage you all to consider these outcomes and incorporating them. But if you don't want to change the OSHA one, then if these are areas that you still want specifically identified to be covered, then it may need to still remain as a separate course, so. just- Especially as these specifics are not specifically identified in the description of the OSHA course, so.
But when you teach OSHA classes, you have the leeway of, when you picking the different topics, the discussion is still up to the person doing the training, so
Yeah.
all that can be incorporated into it.
Does this committee want to incorporate these learning outcomes into the OSHA class and archive this, or leave them separate? We'll take a vote. How many are in favor of incorporation? Okay. How many of y'all are in favor of incorporation? We're looking at either incorporating or keeping the two classes separate for now. So, who is in favor of incorporating? Please raise your hand. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, just 4. Who are in favor of separating or keeping it separate? 1, 2. I can't make a decision either, so I'm.
Okay, I'm still kind of. I'm kind of waffling back and forth because could we bring up OSHT 1313 again? As I was told by my dean, our class is not an OSHA certification class. And so, based on what we discussed earlier today, are you telling me that we will have to incorporate OSHA 30, and will these students get a certification after taking this class?
I think that's up to, I mean, you'd be covering it, but whether you actually go through the process of giving the certification. I think that's up to each, I don't know that you have to.
But you're saying that would be incorporated, the OSHA 30, the 30-hour OSHA safety class should be incorporated as part of this?
Yes.
Okay, so Ken, I want to look at 1313 to see where it differs.
Thing 1313.
OSHT 1313. So how, wouldn't you have to do all that to do this? Wouldn't you have to do all of that to do this? In other words, this description here that, on the course that was agreed upon, like the end of course outcomes, all it says here is identify the OSHA regulations which apply to the construction industry and demonstrate proficiency in retrieving specific information from the regulations. Okay? So that's strictly just the regulations, knowing how to look them up. Like I said, we teach the class, it's a little bit different than that. It's more than that. It's management of those systems and safety plans and all that kind of stuff. This. So should we incorporate some of that into this? And I guess part of our issue is, since we're in a kind of a partnership with Construction Education Foundation, they teach the OSHA 30, they teach the OSHA 10. So our students have access to taking those if they wish, but it's not part of the program, the management program.
It's the same with us. We have a group that teaches OSHA totally. And so if they want to go into total OSHA and OSHA management and everything else, they've got a whole curriculum that they can follow. That will, but it's not, the only we incorporated was just the 13, I think it was, yeah.
'Cause
13.
this sounds like you're taking a 30-hour course and you're
we call it-
stretching it
it's
out
10,
over
yeah.
16 weeks.
10-10, 13-10.
Well, and that's, you can add to it. There are other programs. Programs that would be affected by. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a minute, this changed, who did this?
Right.
Well, like occupational safety group doesn't teach the, we got this, what we call 1110, basic construction safety. They don't teach it. It's not even part of the curriculum.
Making sure we don't have enough. So why is it that, why would you?
Well,
One is to get a report your certification. Somewhere down the line, you're reporting that back. So that can boost your department's rate.
Here's something else. If you guys remember back to our first meeting, we had two members of industry here, and they both said that they would rather hire a student fresh out of school with the OSHA 30. Okay, we're doing this for them, okay? You know, so if you're going through the whole 16 weeks, not giving them, you're cheating them.
In working with our academy, that is
Yeah.
that we do, is teach that's welding,
I think if we need to go back and make any changes to that OSHA is to, in the learning outcomes, add the OSHA 30.
But it doesn't mention you have to have OSHA 30 here, it's just a course.
I know.
It's just a course.
Yeah. I think it's what we've taught other courses like sustainability, and it was up to the students to take the exam and certify themselves after they've taken the class, if they wish to spend that extra money to get there, which they could do after taking the class. They could actually then go online, spend the money, and then get certified. Yes.
I think because since there are other programs that have this course in there, I don't think we should make any changes to that, just because it's going to affect other programs. With WECM, you can add, you just can't take away. And if we add this stuff in there and they teach multiple, you know, it may really conflict. So with the OSHA class we put in the program of study, an institution can opt to do the OSHA 30 certification in their program with
Well,
that.
then, if I've got someone from Dallas coming to me with this OSHA, with the OSHA class, I can't give them credit because I'm planning on doing the OSHA 30. So, you know, we're stuck back to where we were to begin with.
So the recommendation is, we go with the three that we've got listed here, and in our case, it would be 1305, which is 3 credits. The OSHA 30 has to be incorporated into the class, and you're recommending that certification should also be awarded.
No. An institution can do that on their own if they want to, but this one gives them the OSHA 30. If they want to follow through with doing a certification, they can, but you don't have to.
Here's what he was saying was that, this is the question then. So let's say I'm going to your school and we don't do the OSHA 30. I don't take the test, but I'm ready for it. If I come to your school, can you require me to get my OSHA certification to give me credit for it?
I probably would.
I mean, it's no test involved. I mean, if he did all the training and meet all the requirements for the 30, and if he goes there and you give him the certification, all you have to do is just give him the certification. Then, if he didn't met the requirements, so it's no test. It's just meeting all the requirements of taking the
class.
the classes. And you said you're teaching the classes. You just give him the certification. So if you transfers from your school to his school, then just award him a certification.
I wouldn't feel comfortable giving one of his students,
But I'm saying if he met all the requirements of the same class, it's no test involved, it's just meeting the requirements.
There is the OSHA 30 course includes a test. It's an integral part of the course.
It's the assessment.
And the licensed teacher gives you your
But that's a
card.
third-party licensure. That's the problem.
Yes.
OSHA 30 is a separate
No,
certification.
You have to take, the teacher has to take
Yeah, the teacher,
certain
the person
The
classes,
teacher does,
has to be certified, and then they can sign.
it's not certified, it's
It's two
approved.
courses.
It's
It's
approved.
no big
no,
deal.
third party is certifies, and an institution does not have any say. When you have a third party that is giving the certification, that's granting it and overseeing that, then you start going into
Whose
problems.
certification are we talking about?
The OSHA 30.
No, the teacher's certification or the student?
Students.
We're talking about the student.
Talking about the students right now.
The students get their OSHA card signed by the teacher. To do that, the teacher has to be certified. That's 2 one-week classes. Presumably, we could require all the schools to send their faculty to get that certification.
Now we're starting to get into credentialing.
That, yeah, and
I really think we need to.
in our case, it's not an issue
don't.
because the gentleman that's teaching our class is licensed or has the certification, so it's not a deal. The question is whether or not the students come out of the class with a certification.
That depends on the teacher.
I
No,
think,
because if in order to get a OSHA 30 certification, don't they have to take a particular test?
Given by by a certified teacher.
okay, but then that instructor's just a proctor at that point. The certification is not given by the college. It's given by the
Teacher.
the governing, no, they don't, the
Right,
instructor.
Okay, you're right, okay.
Yeah,
But-
that's
and
what
they
I'm
give
saying.
it
It's a
because
third
the teacher
party.
was certified.
And we can't getting into, and a lot of colleges really want to stay away from getting into that third party and credentialing.
Okay.
So that's what I'm trying to, I mean,
I can see that.
yeah, that's,
Just as an FYI, I was talking over with Dwayne, he's pulling up like the schools that are taking the OSHT 1305. But just to let you all know, the title is OSHA Regulations Construction Industry. So this particular course is specific to y'all's area. So if you felt you needed to tweak it, you could, because it is specific to the construction industry. That's the name of it, so. No, it doesn't. Okay, never mind.
Look, I see not schools not wanting to get into that.
I mean, the ones that do, I mean, they should, but I do see that they would rather let the student go take the certification on their own. They're just preparing them for it.
You could add, language here that says, course prepare student for.
But you just can't go test out on the OSHA. No, you've got to sit. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. If a student goes to Brad's college and goes through the course and then comes to me, I'm going to say, I cannot certify you. I cannot. I can't. I have to teach him in order for me to be able to hand him over.
But you're qualified to certify, that's why. So, unfortunately, not every instructor is certified to do that. However, if the course indicates that it's being
also,
taught to prepare the student to certify, then they could go get certified prior.
Prepare to
I guess
certify
the
doesn't
question
make any
here
sense.
is that if the student, is he or she eligible to graduate just because they don't have the OSHA 30? Right, because is that really what at the bottom end of the line is here? So if they take this course and they don't take the OSHA 30, are we going to prevent them from graduating, even though they already have the course content?
I think the course content's what's important.
Doing review course, per se.
Can I ask a quick question? Gilbert, so let's say that we institute these changes, and now we do OSHT 1305, and our students are getting exposure to the OSHA 30 information, but they're not getting certified. What happens if they transfer to your college?
Credit.
You can't even give them as a substitute? But you're teaching the same class.
Teaching the same class, but I'm going to issue them, I'm planning on doing the OSHA 30. Okay, so I cannot take one of your students in and say, okay, well, you've gone over all this material with so-and-so over there. I'm going to go ahead and issue you the 30. I can't do that. If I'm going to issue out a 30, I need to teach that 30 to that student.
Okay, then that's my concern.
And see, yeah, because the program of study says you have to accept the class.
Oh,
But you're,
Don't give them a 30, just give them the credit.
Yeah, and it's that credit that transfers, they just,
that's the question is that, it sounds like, so you're teaching the course to give them that additional credential at the end. They're getting the credit and the credential. So theoretically, if a student is coming from Dallas to Alamo, they should be able to get the credit. They may not get the credential,
right.
but they should get the credit because it is on the POS. You're teaching it to that level. You just happen to be giving, because of your background and the fact that you're certified to test them on that, you can give them that extra. That is not necessarily the case at every institution, but you still giving them college credit.
Student still needs the 30. That's the whole point.
Well,
I'm
that's-
trying to make.
They need the 30 for,
As, demanded that they want students with 30s.
and I get that, and I understand that,
That might be a separate issue, but that's where I'm.
right? But,
But that's
but right now, we're talking about credit.
Being tested on STAR and everything else, I see his point. Get you ready for a second. Standard test that she's preparing for. I think that's kind of what you're saying, but I understand both sides.
So the question is then, so if a student takes this course, whether they're at Alamo or Dallas, they should be prepared to take the test. Right.
So if I didn't have been prepared for this test, now for us to go forward, I need you to pass the test.
There's,
But that student can go somewhere else and get the credential and go through the process somewhere else and do that.
what they're confused.
Question is whether or not they would get credit for the class.
The more I think about it, I'm gonna say no,
Okay.
because it's not equivalent.
Actually, it's not up to you.
I know it's not.
It's the
but if it
program of
was up to me-
study.
If it was up to me, it'd be a
So
no.
you would have to. You don't have a choice. You'd have to give them credit. Just couldn't give the credential.
I mean, it sounds,
I'm gonna go back to graduation though. They complete the course and then they say they transfer you to your college. They complete it successfully, but just because they don't have the OSHA 30 and they continue with your program, you can't graduate that student.
I gotta think about that one a little bit more. But, I mean, I'm just trying to do equivalence here, and I don't think we're on the same page. And I know that there's different parts here.
well, a lot of it has to do with the
Yeah,
fact
I
that
know.
you're at a higher, well, not a higher level, but you have that additional credential that some folks don't have. And so I think because of that, you're at an advantage. Your students are actually at an advantage because they get that testing out of the way. You all are offering that. Yes, Marvin, sorry.
His instructor has the credential. It's just they decided not to give.
Offer the,
That's what I was going to say. Our
it's not-
instructor,
They got the same, yeah.
he went to college in, I think there are, 3 colleges in the nation that give OSHA degrees, and he went to the one in Oklahoma. He's the safety officer for the construction company that he works in. He is qualified to give the OSHA 30. We just don't.
and that's fine.
And I don't think we can dictate that an institution do that.
I think if it might maybe just be worth, just encouraging the student to take the test after they finish the class, is it, they can't?
It's not like there's a standard test. The test is a part of the class, and the certified teacher certifies them based on the class that they sat there for 30 hours. Plus, there has to be a test, but it's not like there's some standard test you take. You couldn't go take the test and then get the certificate. You have to sit there for 30 hours.
I guess my biggest issue is if he sits through his 16-week course and I give him credit, the student still doesn't have the OSHA 30 and has to go pay $600 to somebody else in order to get it.
Yeah. Yep.
Then it would be in an institution's best interest, but we cannot dictate and make the community colleges say, you have to do this, because that's an administrative level decision.
I get what you're saying. I keep going back to what my problem with it. I mean, we're actually screwing the student.
No.
Well, you just can't give the credential, but you'd have to give the credit for the class. I honestly, I think with this, we need to leave it as is and move on, because there are other programs that are affected by that class too, so I think we ought to just move it.
We would be affecting the, as you said, the other
Occupational
courses,
safety.
occupational safety, technology group, and I think they would probably scream.
Yeah. They have this class in their occupational
Yes.
safety degree plans. They have an industrial safety, they have a construction safety, because the degree is all about, occupational safety. So I think it would affect them. So with that, if there are no further classes to archive, are there any other agenda items that this group needs to address with this program of study? Do we have to do the wording of the program of study or just the classes?
It was just the classes. The program of study. The program of study is already done because
Okay.
you and Ray presented it at the advisory committee, and they accepted the courses as listed. And so that's part is done. What was just to be done today was just the tweaking, adjusting of the particular courses.
So if that's the case, then this subcommittee probably does not need to meet again. All right, so when we're looking at the discussion of timeline and future meeting dates, there's probably no need to do that. Does anybody see a need for anything or any other work that needs to be completed at this time? All right, well then, I thank everybody for their service, and I move that we adjourn this meeting. Thank you.
Second?
All right.
Second it?
Thank you.
And you'll send us updates?
Nope.
Yeah.
New, on the line.
Able to give OSHA certificates?
We require OSHA, we require forklift, we require CPR, we
Yeah.
require.
See, our school does forklift training. And that's because I got mine through